Good morning, guys. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's fine, and I do apologize if the situation is not the best possible. This is a very different lesson from the ones that we are used to, but I hope that this very strange period finishes soon, and so we can all go back to what we usually did. Okay, now this is my first virtual lesson, and I am using a program that I usually use to do something else, so to do some tutorials. It is OBS, and you will find, as I will tell you, this video on my channel on YouTube. Okay, you can download it, watch it, use it whenever you want. Okay. um, Now you are looking at me, okay, but then I will also share with you my desktop. And don't forget that all the references, all the material that I am using during this lesson will be found on Didattica on your Classe Viva. Okay, what I want to do with you is now to share with you my desktop. Okay, you can see it, I hope. And I will show you that here in your Classe Viva there is your folder, as you know, that is not Aule Virtuali in this case, but it is Didattica. Okay? In Didattica, as you can see, you will find, but I hope you have already opened it, a folder whose name is Frankenstein, and in this folder there are some files. The first one that you can see here is the Italian for Frankenstein, so the chapter 5 of the novel Frankenstein translated into Italian. Then here you can also find, as you can see at the bottom of the folder when you open it, the chapter 5 but in English. Why have I decided to give you both of the versions? Because here you have the translation, and so you can compare them. You can you can work on this file, on this chapter, without um, bothering with the translation. Okay, I would like you to choose the English and then to use the Italian if there are some words, some expressions that you don't understand. Okay, so you can compare the two versions, the English one and the Italian one, I mean, in order to understand better what it tells. Then the second file that you can find here is an introduction in English to Frankenstein. Not an introduction, sorry, but the introduction that Mary Shelley wrote to the 1831 version publication of her novel Frankenstein. Okay, and you will not find the Italian for it, but you will find a no, you will not find. Okay, we will discuss about the introduction together. I want you to read the introduction, and then you will find in this same folder some questions about the introduction. Okay, then you will find a general plot, okay, of Frankenstein that I have written for you, and you will find here also the audio of the general plot. So exactly the same general plot will be also read to you, so you will be able to focus not only on the content, because it is really easy, but you will be also able to use to use the audio in order to be able to follow the rhythm, to use the correct pronunciation of the words. That's exactly what I would like you to do. Now, another thing I am sharing here, so you can see my face and my desktop. These are the contents. I go back because I don't want to download them, and I've got the same folder that you have on your Didattica here. I would like to start only to sum up something about Frankenstein with the very last part, that is, as you can see here, a Frankenstein mind chart. Don't worry, because as I told you, you've got the same mind chart in the folder that I have just shown you. Ok, what is a mind chart? Is what you call una mappa concettuale, ok, una mappa mentale, mind. As you know, you can use the mind chart like a kind of summary, and don't forget that it contains the very basic info about Frankenstein, the novel Frankenstein, and the things that I would like you to remember and to know about this novel written by Mary Shelley, that you know is considered her best novel, and it is one of the most important Gothic novels in English literature, even though, as we have already stated, it is not only a Gothic novel. I will use today this mind chart in order to summarize the basic things that I want you to know about Frankenstein. We have already told much about this novel, about Mary Shelley, about her life, about the Gothic novel, but I would like to make a kind of summary, synthesis with you. I will start from the very beginning here. I apologize, but I have to zoom in a little bit because I am almost blind, okay? So I will start from the very center of the slide, and this is a PDF, not actually a slide. And so about the plot, you all know, I wish, I hope that the plot deals with the story of a young scientist whose name is Victor Frankenstein, also Dr. Frankenstein, and the novel doesn't follow, as I have already told you, a chronological line, okay? And it starts from almost the end of the story, in the moment when a captain who's exploring the North Pole, Captain Walton, a young captain, meets Frankenstein, and Frankenstein, who has been chasing the monster that he has created. And Frankenstein tells Robert Walton, Captain Walton, about his research and about his creation of a monster. Then it tells him that the monster becomes a murderer, and at the end we know that the monsters will destroy his creator. This is really basically the plot of Frankenstein, but don't forget that you will be able to find the same plot here in plot, okay, the audio, okay, the plot, and general plot and characters. So in the folder that I have already shared with you. Okay, sorry, I go back to the plot. So let's focus on who are the most important characters in the stories. They are the main characters and the minor characters. The main, principali, and minor, as you know, minori, secondari. The main characters are obviously Victor Frankenstein, as you know, is a young scientist who devoted about 2 years of his own life to create a human being, putting together, joining parts of dead bodies, parts of corpses. And what are the characteristics or the most important characteristics of Victor Frankenstein? At the beginning of the novel, at the very start of the novel, he feels omnipotent, that he can do everything. Omnipotent from the Latin, that he is able and that he can do omnia, everything, okay? In fact, what does he want to do? As we know, he wants to be like God. He wants to create life. He wants to create a human being, as I have already stated, putting together, joining parts of dead bodies. Another characteristic of Victor Frankenstein, dealing with his personality, is the fact that he is sensitive. Sensitive, as I have already told you, doesn't stand for the Italian sensitivo, but for the Italian sensibile. So he has a lot of strong feelings, strong emotions. Don't forget, guys, that um, Mary Shelley wrote this novel in 1817, so we are in the full Romanticism. We speak of Gothic novel, we say that it is mainly a Gothic novel, it is usually considered a Gothic novel, but the Gothic period, the period of the Gothic novel in England, in Britain, is okay in the Romantic period, in the second part and the last part of the Romantic period in Britain. So the sensitiveness, the importance of feelings is fundamental, okay, it's very strong. Then, what is another characteristic of Victor Frankenstein? Another characteristic is the fact that at the end of the novel, he understands, he realizes his limits. He understands that he has got limits since he is human. His limits are human. He is a human, and so he has got limits, and he can't overcome the human limits. Even though he is a scientist, he is not omnipotent as he felt at the beginning of the novel, when the novel started. So he changes much in the novel. He changes and he understands, he realizes that he has limits and that trying to overcome, to go beyond the limits imposed by his own human nature has made him um, has made him alone, has made him make a lot of mistakes in his life. Okay, what is the other main character in the novel Frankenstein? The other main character is obviously the monster himself, the monster created by the scientist Victor Frankenstein. You already know that Frankenstein is not the monster, as a lot of people usually think, but Frankenstein is the family name, the surname of his creator. The monster has never been given a name by its creator. He is usually referred to as the thing, the monster, it. Okay, so is the monster. Why is the monster? Because one of his most important characteristics is, of course, the fact that he is deformed, deforme. What does it mean, deformed? That is not very well proportioned, that is horrible, that is really ugly. Why? Because it is not a natural product, it's not a product of nature, but it is a kind of product of science. And this product of science was, as I already told you, created by joining, by putting together parts of corpses. Corpses are actually dead bodies. Then let's focus on other two of the monster's characteristics. The second, sorry, is something that makes him similar, okay, with Victor Frankenstein, is the fact that also the monster is extremely sensitive. What do I mean when I say that the monster is extremely sensitive? When I say it, I mean that he was born, and when he was born, he was created. As I have already told you, he was really like a child. So he was horrible, monstrous, huge in shape, but he was as a child. And as a child, and as Rousseau's man of nature, he was also very sensitive. He wanted to be loved. He wanted somebody to take care of him. He made little by little a lot of mistakes because of his sensitiveness, because he was natural, and so for this reason he needed to be loved. He needed somebody to take care of him. As you already know, in a moment of the story, he asked Victor Frankenstein to create a companion, a partner for him, a woman monster, because he felt completely alone. And the fact of feeling alone, being lonely, was one of the maybe of the feelings that best shows his sensitiveness. So the fact of his being sensitive. Let's go back to what I was saying. That is, oh my God, I've forgotten it. No. Okay, here it is. Another characteristic of the monster is the fact that he is self-aware. Self-aware. What does self-aware mean? Self-aware means that he is consapevole, ok? Consapevole di sé. What does it mean that he is consapevole di sé, that he is self-aware? Being self-aware, sorry, means that little by little in the story, step by step in the narrative, he changes. He is not more a baby, a big, enormous child, gigantic, deformed child, but is well aware of his condition. He understands little by little, experiencing life, what is his condition, that is different, that is deformed, that is condemned to be lonely because of the fact that he is deformed and sensitive and a product of science. Okay, this means that he is self-aware, that he knows exactly what is his condition. Okay, he knows little by little, he understands, he acquires this self-awareness of what he is. Now I would like to go back a little bit here to focus on the relationships, okay, that you can see between the monster and Victor Frankenstein, on the relationships. You will see here that the first of the relationship is possible relationships is between father and son. Who is the father? Obviously, Victor Frankenstein can be considered a kind of father, okay, because the father is one of the persons, one of the people, one of the two, okay, persons which creates life, a man and a woman, father and mother in the natural, okay, world, are usually able to create a life. So Victor Frankenstein can be considered the monster's father, and so the monster can be considered his son, but this is not a very well balanced relationship, kind of relationship. Why? Because a father usually loves his son, takes care of his son, looks after his son. This is not what happens in Frankenstein in the novel, because Victor, as soon as he creates the monster, as you will read in chapter 5 in the creation, as soon as he sees it, as soon as he witnesses a testimony of his first breath of life, okay, as soon as he sees the monster, Frankenstein is horrified, terrified, not only, but is disgusted with with what he has created, with the result of his creation. So, as I told you, this kind of relationship between father and son is not very well balanced. A father usually loves his son, but Frankenstein never loved his monster, the product of his creation. Okay? He was disgusted, he was horrified when he saw it alive, breathing for the very first time. And then he hated it little by little because it was considered a failure. What he wished for, the achievement, his goal, was only a disaster, was only monstrous. And then his creation killed his beloved. And so no love. This relationship between father and son was not absolutely based on love, but on hatred, odio. He hated the monster little by little. And little by little, the monster, at the very beginning of the novel, was willing, okay, was in need of love, of cares, of attention, of whatever a child might need. Little by little, step by step, he also started to hate his own creator. So no love both on both of the two sides. Okay? Then another kind of relationship is the one between God and man. Why the relationship between God and man? Because God creates, okay, and man is created. So Victor Frankenstein, when he creates the monster, this being, is a kind of God. He creates life, even though he uses sciences in this case, science or different kinds of sciences in this case. And man is Frankenstein, the monster created by Frankenstein, who is left alone. God created man and left the man alone. Okay, leaving them the arbitrio, what we call it in Italian, the possibility, the freedom to choose. That was what Victor Frankenstein did with the monster. He created it and it left it completely alone, like God did with the humankind, with man. Okay, now let's focus on other parts of the novel. And so let's focus, for example, on the narrators. Who are the narrators? So I remember that I told you that the structure of the novel is not the classic one. So it doesn't follow a chronological order of the events. There is the plot is a little bit intricated, and it is really complicated also by the fact that there is not only one narrator, but in the novel we find three narrators. What does it mean, three narrators? We can listen to more than one voice. We have three different points of view. Okay, the first is the narration of Walton, Robert Walton, so I mean the explorer. And the second is the narration in first person given by or done by Dr. Victor Frankenstein. And as you can see here, it is a first person narrative. So they describe the story from their point of view. And the third is the part in which the monster tells Victor Frankenstein and then tells Walton his own story. In the three types of narration, all the three types of narrators use the first person narrative. What does it mean? That each of them is non-omniscient, okay, doesn't know everything. Everybody, all of them, so both Walton and Frankenstein and Walton, Frankenstein and the monster tell their story from their own point of view, from their own perspective. So there are different points of view that together make the whole. Okay, we have already said something about it. I would like you to remember. Then, which is the setting of the novel? There are different settings. The most important are the North Pole. The North Pole is where the story begins, okay, or where the story ends. Let's focus on it. So it is not where the story begins, where the narrative begins, because it is the place where um, Walton meets, rescues Frankenstein, who's chasing the monster, as I have already told you. And then there is what Baviera, okay, that is a region, and there is Geneva, okay. So these are the most important parts of the setting where the story happens. The time, when is the story set? Where is the story told in Frankenstein set? It is in the contemporary age, in not our contemporary age, but it is in the period when Mary Shelley wrote it. So the story is set at the beginning of the 19th century. In fact, the time is present, and it narrates past events. Okay, so the time was contemporary. Then, what is the structure? We focused on the narrative, and we said that it is divided into chapters. Okay, and in some chapters, we also find an epistolary form. What does it mean, an epistolary form? That there are letters that Robert Walton writes to his sister in order to tell her Frankenstein's story. Not only Frankenstein's story at the beginning, to tell her about his own experience in trying to reach the North Pole, and then little by little he will tell in letters, in his letter to his sister, the story that also Frankenstein told him. Okay. Um, then we can also say, okay, that there are also some parts in which there are long confessions of the characters. What does it mean? Um, they are written or oral, so there is somebody who tells them, or there is somebody who confesses, actually. And for example, when the monster meets Frankenstein, okay, on the glacier Montanvert, su un ghiacciaio, you will see on the glacier, he tells him, he confesses him what he wants. So, for example, also at the beginning of the novel, after the death of Dr. Frankenstein, the monster confesses himself. he says farewell to his creator, confessing himself, saying what his feelings are, um, saying what he has done. Okay, so they are kind of written or oral confessions. Then one of the characteristic of the structure is the preference uh, of Mary Shelley, or Mary Shelley's preference for indirect speech. She usually uses indirect speech, not direct one. Okay? The language, as you can see, so it's a mixture of direct and indirect speech, both of them, even though the indirect one is most widely used. Now, let's focus on the right part of this mind map. You already know about Mary Shelley. I don't want to focus on her anymore because we have spent a lot of time speaking about her life, speaking about the tragic events which characterized their life, and that obviously also influenced the plot, the story that she wrote in this novel. I would like most of all to focus on the sources of the novel. What are the sources? The sources are le fonti. So, what sources did Mary Shelley use in order to write this story? We know that one of the most important sources was obviously, or were obviously, the German ghost stories. We also know why, because when she started to write the novel, she was in Villa Diodati on the Lake of Geneva, as you know, with Lord Byron, with Polidori, and with Percy Bysshe Shelley, and that proved to be an uncongenial, a very wet summer, a very rainy summer, and so they spent a lot of time indoor reading Phantasmagonia, which were stories translated from French to German. Um, and another important source were scientific, the most important and the most famous scientific theories of the time, and that dealt mostly with the experiments which a lot of scientists were doing at the day. Most of all, the experiments, the scientific experiments dealing with the use of electricity to reanimate bodies. Okay, then other works that they were reading together, which Mary Shelley knew well, were works on chemistry, and they also talked and they discussed about the principles of evolution, on the possibility to give life, to create life, and on electricity. Then another idea which was fundamental and which we find, okay, and at the heart of the novel, in the heart of the novel, are Rousseau's ideas about education. Okay, in fact, as we have already stated, the monster is a man in a state of nature. It is what Rousseau called it the natural man, the man in a state of nature. So the man who, when he was born, was mainly good and then was corrupted, spoiled by society, by experience. Okay, so go back to the idea of Rousseau that we have already stated, and go back also, try to make some connection with Blake, I mean, with innocence and experience. Okay, then another important source for Mary Shelley was represented by romantic works, so by the poems and written by her contemporary and also by her friends. Okay, don't forget that some of her most important friends, like Byron, were famous poets. And then another important source, I hope you remember it, is the myth of Prometheus. Okay, in fact, don't forget that the whole title, the complete title of the novel is Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. We have already said much about the myth of Prometheus, and so you know that as Prometheus stole the fire from gods to give it to man and was punished for his crime against God, so for challenging the power of gods, so the scientist Victor Frankenstein tried to still challenge the power of God, the power of nature to create life, creating life out of death, creating life, creating a sort of human being that then became a monster, joining, putting together parts of dead bodies was like a challenge to God. Okay, so stealing the fire from gods, Prometheus had challenged gods and trying to create life without a woman. Okay, so in a science lab was a kind of challenge to God. So Frankenstein was the modern Prometheus. For this reason, Frankenstein, the scientist, is a modern Prometheus because of his challenge to God and to nature, to the principles, the rules, the laws of nature. Okay, and when I would like to go back a little bit to romantic works, when I think of romantic works, you should think of one in particular, one we have studied, okay, that is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Why? What is the connection between this romantic work, okay, by this long poem, long ballad, written by one of the most important poets of the first generation of British Romantic poets, and Frankenstein? What is the connection? Don't forget that also Coleridge, in writing The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, stated that the sin of the mariner, okay, for which he had to be punished, and he was punished not only with the tragical events that happened during his voyage, but also for all his life, was his challenge to nature, is not respecting a law of nature, killing a bird, killing an albatross without any real important reason. And he was punished all his life long. Firstly, witnessing all of his crew dying, and then being forced to tell again and again his story for all his life. Okay, so try to focus on the comparison, okay, on the characteristics that the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, the myths of Prometheus, and Frankenstein might have in common. Then we said that in Frankenstein we find a lot of elements belonging or to the Gothic novel, belonging to the Gothic novel. And what are they? They are synthesized here. We have already said much about it, but I will focus on it on them again. The first, the description of a dreadful setting, dreadful, spaventoso. So the setting is usually dreadful, even though most of the setting is a science lab. Okay, everything, the atmosphere is very gloomy, is very terrifying, dreadful in Frankenstein, and this is one of the characteristics of the Gothic novel, the setting. Do you remember when we talked about the Gothic novel? Try to go back to them to see what were the characteristics of the setting. You will find them also in the slides that 1 month ago, I think, or also more, I shared with you. Okay, then another characteristic of the Gothic novel that we can find or that might be found in Frankenstein is the ugliness of the monster. Ugliness is, as we said before, deformed, is ugly, is terrible, is horrifying, he is disgusting. And the presence of this kind of disgusting, ugly monster of this character who is really, really disgusting and horrible is one of the characteristics of the characters of the Gothic novels, as you should know. Then, um, another characteristic is the reaction of his creator. What does it mean? The reaction of his creator is very Gothic because his creator suddenly, little by little, um, is not scientific anymore. He starts being a scientist, trying, as we said before here, to be feeling omnipotent, but is then disgusted, and then is like ruled by forces in him which he cannot control. In fact, for example, at the end of the novel, he starts chasing the monster because he wants to kill the monster. This is out of rage, okay? It's like he loses his mind completely. This kind of reaction, so not controlled, doomed by instinct, is very Gothic, okay? And the other one of the other characteristics is the atmosphere in the novel of danger and of surprise. Danger. There is always this atmosphere in which something terrible is about to happen, will happen soon. Okay, suspense. The suspense is the kind of feeling which is created in the reader, for which is always expecting for something terrible to happen. It's like remaining like that, breathless, waiting for something terrible to happen. This is the atmosphere which Mary Shelley created in the novel, and which contributes to make it a kind of Gothic novel, or which contributes in giving some characteristics of the Gothic novel to the novel Frankenstein. Okay. Then I would like to go to this part, the part of the themes, which maybe is the one on which we have already focused on, but I would like to only to sum it up, okay, as I am doing. The themes, I will tell you what are they. So, oh my God, what I have done. The themes are both, as you can see, concrete and abstract. Concrete. What are the concrete? Concrete means concreti, okay? So they deal with something which is real, that is tangible. And they are the creation, okay? The creation, the moment of creation, and the scientific experiment. The moment of the creation is something real, is something tangible, is something concrete. So it's a kind of science belonging, entering a novel. Okay, they are kind of concrete scientific elements. The creation, okay, the moment of the experiment, the fact that Victor Frankenstein spent 2 years in his lab, depriving himself of the company of his family, of his friends, of his girlfriend, of sometimes food and sleep, as he says, okay? And everything happens in a science lab, the creation, the experiments that he did. On the other side, dealing with the other themes, there are the abstract ones. Okay, for example, injustice. Okay, what is the injustice? Injustice is what is not correct to be done. So there are different kinds of injustice in this novel. Maybe the first is the injustice, not respecting the laws of God and the laws of nature. It's a kind of injustice. Then there is another kind of injustice, creating a human being, even though it is monstrous, and abandoning him, not taking care of him, not looking after him. It is another kind of injustice. It's also unjust The fact that the monster, being alone, decides to avenge. Okay, to avenge is solitude. He won't vendicarsi, avenge. Okay, and he kills little by little the people that or who Victor Frankenstein loves. This is not this is not right. It's unjust. It's a form of injustice. Then discrimination. This is another abstract but fundamental theme in the novel or of the novel. It is discrimination. What does it mean, discrimination? To think that something or something is different and putting it apart, setting it apart. In this basing on principles which we believe in. Why is the monster victim of this discrimination? Because he is a monster. At the beginning, he is a victim of discrimination only because he is enormous, ugly, disgusting. So he is victim of discrimination only because of his appearance. Is not a common man. He is not the features. Okay, he is not the body, the force, the aspect, the appearance of a common man. And for this reason, he is discriminated, is a victim of discrimination, I mean. Then another abstract theme is obviously horror and fear. Horror and fear. They are present in the novel because they are Gothic elements. Fear, horror, fear for something that is about to happen, fear for something that happens, terrible descriptions of terrible places, of, as we said before, dreadful settings, of dreadful events. Okay? Then we also find here the theme of the ambition. Ambition. In fact, we said that the theme, I remember that in one of my last lessons, I have already focused on the theme of ambition. I used the word, if you remember, overreacher. I said that some of the most important characters in the novel, Frankenstein and the Captain Walton and the monster himself, can be considered overreachers. They are ambitious. Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, is ambitious because he wants to create life. He challenges God, as we said. He wants to create a human being without the enough science lab, using his knowledge, his scientific knowledge. The same ambition moves Captain Robert Walton. He wants to be the first to reach the North Pole, and he is alone. Both of them, we said, are punished for the fact of being so ambitious. Okay, being overreachers, never being satisfied with what they have got. Okay, then another theme here, oh my god, I can't see, is isolation. Oh, sorry, I am blind. Isolation, yes, and we said that ambition and isolation are really strongly connected, okay, linked one of the other. Why? Since Victor is ambitious and since Captain Robert Walton is ambitious, what happens? That they are isolated, they are alone. At the beginning, they choose to be alone because they put all of their efforts, okay, in reaching, in trying to get to their goal. But little by little, they become alone, they are isolated from the world. They have nobody around them, okay? Then also alienation. What does it mean, alienation? Being totally alone. having nobody who can understand what you're doing. And that's what it happens because of their ambition, because they do something which other people cannot understand. So they are apart, they are apart, they are far away from everybody. Okay? Not only in a physical sense, but also in a psychological sense. Nobody can understand what they do, what they are doing. Okay? And another abstract theme, maybe one of the most important in the novel, is love. As you can see here, love. What is love? Love, it is what moves the novel. Okay? Love for knowledge is what makes Victor Frankenstein study so much and trying to create life out of death. Okay, love is what the monster needs. What the monster as a child, even though is gigantic and ugly, okay, and really monstrous and deformed, needs. He needs to be loved. He wants to be loved, as every child needs. Okay, love. Love is love that Victor Frankenstein has for his wife, Elizabeth, was killed by the monster. Love. Love for knowledge, love for other people, love for life, for science. Okay. These are the most important things that I would like you to remember about Frankenstein and the novel. Okay. And this is a kind of summary of the most important things that we have said. So what I would like you to do, okay, now that you have all the material, that you have everything about it, is, sorry, I go back here. No, sorry. I go back here to my face, okay? And what I want you to do is, firstly, to try also using this scheme as I have just done, try to focus on the novel and to try to speak about it. So about its origins, about its author, about the themes, about whatever you want. And then another important thing that I would like you to do is, sorry, what I have done, is to, I will do like that, okay, is to focus on the material that you've got. Okay, as I told you, you will find the chapter 5 in English. Okay, this is the image, and this is, okay, a Word document. No, it's not a Word, but it is a PDF. It is exactly the same here and here. Then, oh, sorry. What am I doing? No, I don't know how to go out of it. Oh, I will manage, don't worry, guys. These are the inconvenience. Okay, this is the inconvenience of using a tool, okay, that I don't know. So this is the chapter 5. Then you will find the same in Italian. As I told you, you can compare them. This is the translation. And this is the same one that you can find on your textbook that I have already given you as an homework. Then what I want you to focus on is this one. This is the introduction to the 1831 edition of Frankenstein, and it was written by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. Okay, it is not the whole introduction, but I have selected some parts for you. In fact, you can see that here in brackets it means that something has been cut out. Okay, for the next time, so I think for Monday, okay, next Monday, I would like you all to be able to speak for about 10 minutes, okay, of Frankenstein. So putting together everything you want. You can use a chart, you can read something, but I would like all of you to speak about Frankenstein for about 10 minutes. This is my homework. Okay, so if you've got any, and now I am preparing another lesson for you dealing with the Victorian age that will be ready by the end of this week. Okay, the Victorian age, and maybe one of the most important authors, novelists of the Victorian age, who was Charles Dickens. Now, girls, I I hope you're fine. Don't go out, stay at home, study, and I hope to see you soon, everybody. Okay, so get ready to speak about Frankenstein, also using a mind map, doing whatever you want for 10 minutes. And we are now planning, I will plan a forum, a live forum, in which we could interact and in which I will listen to all of you, maybe in groups. Now we'll see, speaking about Frankenstein. Okay, we will think. I will think about what to do, about what is the best way to do it. Okay, so girls, let me close it. Let me close it again. Okay, let's go back to my face and see you soon and bye bye. I don't know how to close it. Okay, I think like that.